Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So over the weekend, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden finally reached a deal on a bill in regards to raising of the debt ceiling, which of course has a lot of spending cuts. But by raising the debt ceiling, we also prevent our government from going into default, and we make sure that Social Security payments continue to go out on a timely basis, because if we did not raise the debt ceiling, it was very possible that payments for Social Security beneficiaries could have very well been delayed. So this is going to be great news if they are able to raise the debt ceiling. However, there is one factor and one thing that could potentially cause this bill to actually fail from passing, and we're going to be going over that in today's video, as well as more of what's in the bill. But before I go ahead and dive into the main content of today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just helps out with the good old YouTube algorithm, and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already. Okay, so again, over the weekend, they did come to an agreement, and right now they are writing up the bill. And pretty much at this point, we pretty much know everything that is in the bill in regards to the spending cuts and everything like that. So in the bill, they are going to be raising the debt ceiling through January 1st of 2025. So that means that during the rest of the tenure of President Biden's 4 years, he won't have to deal with any of this drama anymore. So that is a win for Biden and, of course, the Democratic Party. However, Republicans got a lot of wins as well, because they were able to claw back a lot of the COVID funding that was unspent. So it is expected that around $50 to $70 billion is going to be clawed back with that. They're also going to have some new work requirements. So right now, if you're between the ages of 50 to 54, you're now going to have to work at least 20 hours per week, as long as you're not a veteran, as long as you're not homeless, and as long as you don't have dependents. So there are exceptions to that. We're going to be going over that in today's video. And then, of course, they're also going to be clawing back funding that was supposed to be going to the IRS to hire new agents to audit more Americans and hopefully bring in more revenue in that way as well. And of course, there are some other things that we're going to be talking about in today's video. So according to CNBC, what's in the debt ceiling deal struck by Biden and McCarthy? So first off, there is a cap on discretionary spending. So the deal would suspend the $31.4 trillion debt ceiling until January 1st, 2025, allowing the U.S. government to pay its bills. But there is going to be an increase in defense spending, so the deal would boost total defense spending to $886 billion, in line with Biden's 2024 budget spending proposal. And then, of course, they would claw back the IRS funding in the Inflation Reduction Act. They would have the funds clawed back from the COVID relief, and they estimate the amount of unused funds is between $50 to $70 billion. And then, of course, there are going to be some more work requirements, as I just mentioned, for SNAP benefits. So Biden and McCarthy battled fiercely over imposing stricter work requirements on low-income Americans for being eligible for food and healthcare programs. No changes were made to Medicaid in the deal, but the agreement would impose new work requirements on some low-income people who receive food assistance under the program known as SNAP up to age 54 instead of up to age 50. So again, that's going to be 20 hours per week for able-bodied adults. There are going to be exclusions. If you're homeless, you're going to be excluded from that. If you're a veteran, you're going to be excluded from that. And the 20 hours can be like training to get a job, or if you're going to school, that would exclude you from this as well. So there are going to be some new work requirements. Now also, there's going to be something in regards to student loans in this bill. So the new bill would require the Biden administration to follow through with a plan to end the current pause on student loan repayments by late August. Now, right now in the Supreme Court, they have a case where a lot of students could have up to $20,000 of their student loans actually completely canceled. We'll have to see whether or not they reject that plan or whether or not they accept the plan. And then they also have something in here in regards to energy permits. So Biden and McCarthy agreed to new rules to make it easier for energy projects, including fossil fuel-based ones, to gain permit approval. McCarthy and his Republicans had identified permitting reform as one of the pillars of any deal, and the White House threw its support behind the plan earlier this month. So, of course, the House is going to finally be returning to Washington on Tuesday or Tuesday night, and they're going to have the House Rules Panel vote on the bill. So, in order for McCarthy to become the Speaker, he had to agree to allow 3 hardline conservatives onto that panel. And in this panel, in order for it to pass, they need to have at least majority. So they need to have at least 7 yes votes out of the 13 members. Right now, there are 9 Republicans and 4 Democrats. So if all Republicans throw their support behind the bill, it's going to pass. However, there are those 3 Republicans in there that are considered these hardline conservatives that could potentially be against the bill. And one of those Republicans already said that he's going to vote no on it. So that's going to come down to the other 2 Republicans in the group. So according to CNN, House Rules Committee looms large over debt ceiling deal. Before the full U.S. House can vote on the tentative debt limit deal struck between President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, it has to get through the Chamber's Rules Committee. The panel must adopt a rule to allow the deal to be considered by the full House, and some conservatives are making their distaste for the deal clear. To win his speakership, McCarthy agreed to name 3 conservative hardliners, Representatives Ralph Norman, Chip Roy, and Thomas Massie, to the Rules Committee, a major concession since the powerful panel is usually stacked with close allies of leadership. Norman and Roy have already emerged as sharp critics of the debt limit deal, while Massie has been quiet as he waits for the bill text to be released. If all 3 vote against the rule in committee, that would kill the bill, unless any of the Democrats on the panel to vote to advance the rule. Norman told CNN he would vote against the rule unless major changes are made to the bipartisan deal. He said, quote, "Bottom line, if the debt limit is raised above the $1.5 trillion level, and if the timeline extends to 2025, if the student loan payout is still intact, if the IRS agent funding is still there, if the provision in the IRA is still intact, if the work requirement excludes Medicaid, I will vote against the rule," he said in a text message. So obviously, we have Norman here that is going to vote no, and now it's going to come down to the other 2 hardline conservatives in this group. Assuming that all Democrats will also vote no, it's very possible if we have these 3 Republicans vote no and the 4 Democrats also vote no, that's going to make it so this bill cannot actually make it to the House to vote on it, and that's pretty much going to completely kill the bill unless these 3 to decide to actually change their mind on this issue. And if it kills the bill, that means that McCarthy and Biden have to go back to the negotiating room, come up with something else that maybe these 3 will like. But at the end of the day, I think at least maybe one out of the 3 hardline conservatives here will approve of it, which if they do and the other Republicans also vote yes, then that will allow this bill to go on to the House to be voted on, which will most likely be on Wednesday. And in the House, they'll need at least 218 votes. There's going to be a lot of Republicans voting against it, a lot of Democrats voting against it. But what they're really looking for are those lawmakers in the middle, both Democrats and Republicans, to vote on and approve this bill. And at the end of the day, even though there are a lot of Democrats opposed to this bill that say that Biden gave in too much and gave too many concessions to Republicans, and even though there's a lot of Republicans who say that McCarthy did not get enough, that we didn't get enough spending cuts, that we should not have raised the debt ceiling all the way through 2025, and they're going to vote no, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have enough Republicans kind of in the middle that are going to approve of it. And also, even though a lot of Democrats would have rather not made all of those concessions, that they would have rather just raised the debt ceiling by itself without having to cut federal spending, that they said that should have been like a standalone issue on that part. To Democrats, it's really coming down to pushing 2 buttons. It's cutting federal spending, but raising the debt ceiling, or not agreeing to the bill, but defaulting on our debts and not raising the debt ceiling. And of course, if we default on our debts, that's going to cause the delay of Social Security payments. It's going to cause a lot of economic hardships for the millions of Americans. So at the end of the day, at least those Democrats in the middle are probably going to approve of this bill, just because it's pretty much the lesser of the evils to them to raise the debt ceiling, even though it does include a lot of spending cuts. But that's all the news that we have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.